Hi, good morning, everyone. We are live on Facebook. Please feel free to share the live, tell your friends to feel free to tune in. We have a very interesting topic coming up, and we would like as much as people as possible to join us for this interesting presentation. So please feel free to share the live. And we'll start in a few seconds. All right, so hello and welcome everyone to another installment of our Consumer Talk monthly series. Again, please feel free to share the live, as our topic today centers around combating illicit trade in Trinidad and Tobago and how we as consumers can join the fight. So the Anti-Illicit Trade Task Force, or the AITTF, is a public-private partnership of organizations involved in combating the illicit trade in Trinidad and Tobago, and of which Ministry of Trade is a part. Today's topic focuses on sharing awareness about the topic of illicit trade. Now, we as consumers, we sometimes unknowingly purchase items that are counterfeit, contraband, or illegally obtained and then offered for sale on the open market. These items may sometimes seem to be legal, but they are being illegally traded, and we need to do our part to help stop the trade of these goods. So today, we will hear from Ms. Ilanka Manrique on what illicit trade is all about and the types of goods that are usually targeted for the illegal trade. Ms. Manrique serves as the Research Officer, Business Development Unit, and the Illicit Trade Desk Officer at the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, or the TTMA. Please welcome Ms. Manrique as she speaks to us for the next 30 minutes. We invite you to remember to take notes because our Q&A segment is just right after, where we will entertain questions and queries and your comments. So feel free to post in the chat, or you can email us consumeraffairs@gov.tt, or you can post on our Facebook Messenger page any questions that you have concerning our presentation. So right now we will give way to Ms. Manrique as she speaks to us.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Bullard, for that warm introduction. It is my pleasure to be here with you this morning. As Ms. Bullard indicated, I am a research officer at the TTMA and also overseeing the role of the Illicit Trade Desk Officer, where we do a number of public awareness campaigns on the topic of illicit trade. So it's my pleasure to be here, my pleasure to do this presentation for you, the consumers, because you may be hearing illicit trade, you may hear the word illicit trade, you may hear illicit trade exists, but you don't necessarily understand what illicit trade is. So I'll go straight into my presentation at this time. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so I'll share my presentation now. So we need to understand what is illicit trade in order to have a holistic understanding of how it could impact you as a consumer. So illicit trade can be defined as the unlawful supply, production, distribution, sale, purchase, counterfeiting, shipment, or trafficking of a product or an item in which the applicable taxes or liabilities due on the product is not paid. And you would see a list, the whole list that we have here, and it just shows you that illicit trade is a very, very broad topic and spans across a wide array of crimes in the whole scheme of illicit trade. So it also refers to breaches in the packaging and labeling requirements for a specific country. So in this case, Trinidad and Tobago. So it could mean that someone is bringing in, or an importer is bringing in a product and they are not paying the duties that are due on that particular product, or it could mean that they are under invoicing a particular product and bringing it into the country. Or alternatively, it could mean that these types of items are coming through, illegal borders or porous borders or ports of entry that are not deemed legal, where, as I said, the taxes are not paid, right? And in terms of the labeling standards, in terms of the definition of illicit trade, it simply means that a perpetrator or manufacturer, distributor, importer is not following the labeling standards specific to the country. So this is essentially what illicit trade is. I'll go on to the next slide, which will kind of give you an insight into the different types of illicit trade so that you could understand, how impactful this type of crime is. So the types of illicit trade. Illicit trade is very, very broad as I indicated, and it includes smuggled goods. So this means goods that are not intended for sale in Trinidad and Tobago or in another part of the world, country, or jurisdiction. So it comes into the country, but it was really only for sale in Abu Dhabi, or it was only for sale in the United Kingdom. It's not intended to be sold here, or, and it's brought into the country, and you're seeing it on the market, you're seeing it on the shelves, you're seeing it on the retail outlets, but it's not meant for here, right? So that is one type of illicit trade. We also have tax evasion, which is the primary type of illicit trade, where as I said, the applicable taxes are not paid, so they could either underdeclare or not declare the product upon entry into Trinidad and Tobago. For example, you may have an item in which the taxes are 5% based on the value of the item, and you are taxed 2% because you undervalue the value of your imports or the shipment that you're bringing in. And this is one of the main types of illicit trade where they kind of cheat the government into what is due to them in terms of the liabilities that is due to the government. They under invoice or don't declare their items, and the government is robbed of their duties and their taxes. We also have counterfeit products or piracy. Counterfeit products in layman terms, for you to better understand, could be considered imitation products or the duplication or replicas of products in which a manufacturer, distributor, or someone does not have the authority to produce this item. For example, we have, brands such as Nike, we have Michael Kors, we have, Jordan sneakers, different handbags, watches. All of these things are sometimes imitated, in which you might see it on the market. It may not be of the same quality of an original product, which is how you'll be able to identify it, but it has the brand tag as JanSports, whereas it's not necessarily an original JanSports. So this is another type of illicit trade that you will commonly see on the market. So quote unquote imitation products, right? We also have non-compliant products, which are products that are not following the packaging and labeling requirements or standards of the country. So, for example, in terms of products such as tobacco, there are certain labeling requirements or certain items or tags that you must have on the product, and you may see it on the market and it does not have what it's supposed to. So this is another type of illicit trade. Also, you may see a cleaning product on the market or being sold at the side of the road, where they are supposed to follow certain labeling standards, but the label on the item does not follow that. So that is also a type of illicit trade, which is actually one type of illicit trade that some persons may overlook, but it is very much important. We also have the adulteration of products as another type of illicit trade, in which, the quality of a product could be reduced because illicit traders are using ingredients or items in the product that reduces the quality of it. So these are some of the primary types of illicit trade that affects the market and affects you as the consumer. Now we will look at some of the common industries. So I did mention one or two earlier, but illicit trade is very much broad. So we have several industries that illicit trade affects. It impacts and it kind of penetrates these industries and could reduce profitability and all of these things. So we have some of the primary sectors outlined here. First and foremost, we have alcohol, which is a very, very much a high value item and one of the most attractive types of products that attracts illicit trade or illicit traders. So in terms of alcohol products, the type of illicit trade we see in this area is the tax evasion and the smuggling, where alcohol products are sometimes brought into the country, not intended for sale here, where, you know, lot codes on the manufacturer codes are scratched off and the applicable duties and taxes to be paid on these products upon importation are not paid. So we have the alcohol sector, which is one of the most quote unquote attractive sectors for illicit traders. We also have illicit trade in pharmaceutical items. So you may see, you know, products on the market, products being sold at retail outlets, not intended for sale here, or, you know, is a replica or a copy of an original brand. So this is another type of illicit trade. We also sometimes see the smuggling in pharmaceutical products that are not meant for our market, not meant to be sold in Trinidad and Tobago on the market or flooding the market. You know, pharmaceutical is something that a very, very large industry that impacts or is affected by illicit trade. We also have the cosmetic industry, where we have products that are being imitated, replicated, and being sold on the market and may actually not be safe for consumers to use. We also have illegal wildlife. So this is, for example, sometimes you will see perpetrators of illicit trade trying to import a animal or, you know, a wildlife that's not meant for Trinidad and Tobago or not supposed to be here. You know, sometimes they are entering into the country via porous borders, where, you know, they're bringing certain animals not meant for here, not meant to be in Trinidad and Tobago, could be due to the climate, the environment, all of these things, and it's being smuggled into Trinidad and Tobago. I know in the past there have been some, you know, there have been media reports of illegal wildlife being smuggled into the country. We also have a very, very large sector where apparel, footwear, handbags, you know, it could even cover watches, all of these things where illicit trade affects or penetrates these sectors. So I did give some examples before in terms of certain brands you're seeing on the market imitated. Where, you know, you may see a shoe imitated, you may see a brand of t-shirts being imitated. You know, for example, I could give examples for, you know, Disney branded t-shirts and dresses and paraphernalia being sold in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's actually copies of original items that, you know, you would get if you visit Disney or, you know, their authorized retailers. We also have music piracy. Just to bring it into layman terms, music piracy is a type of illicit trade that may also be overlooked, but we sometimes see the common man on the street, you know, pushing the carts and selling CDs. But this is a type of illicit trade because they are sometimes replicating or duplicating or copying the music on the content of our artists or various artists that are selling their music or their content via authorized platforms, via their own, you know, CD disc, or even getting it on platforms such as iTunes, Spotify, these kind of things, and then it's being burnt onto a CD and being sold. This is a type of illicit trade. There's also electronic items that are sometimes affected by illicit trade. For example, you may have an iPhone, but you can't see an iPhone replica. This is a illicit trade because we have brand infringement happening here, where you're copying an item that you're not authorized to sell, or you don't have the rights to do so, right? We also have another quote unquote attractive industry to illicit traders, and one just like alcohol, one of the largest sectors that are affected by illicit trade. We have tobacco. In terms of tobacco, it is mainly the smuggling and the tax evasion that affects this particular industry. You know, in different jurisdictions, there's also, you know, counterfeit cigarettes or brand imitation, but in Trinidad and Tobago in particular, it's mainly tax evasion and smuggling of these items into the country via legal and illegal ports of entry. We also have consumer products. So sometimes you may even purchase a toothpaste or a cream from retail outlets, and you're seeing the label in a different language, which means, you know, it's not meant for Trinidad and Tobago. It wasn't to be sold in Trinidad and Tobago because typically our language, the language on our items, it's supposed to be in English, right? So if you're purchasing an item at a retail outlet and the entire packaging is in another language, it could mean that this product was not for sale in Trinidad and Tobago. It does not mean that the product is not good. It does not mean that the product cannot be consumed, but it's not for our market. It could have been smuggled. It could have been, as I said, smuggled into the country, right? Or it's just not for sale here, but it is legal in another jurisdiction in which it is to be sold. And we also have cleaning agents. I did touch on this earlier, but in terms of cleaning agents, sometimes we see persons on the streets or retailers selling items that are not following the labeling standards of Trinidad and Tobago. And, you know, some of these standards are outlined by our Bureau of Standards, and these products are not conforming to the standards that they're supposed to follow. So they may just put a label on a product, but not follow what they're supposed to have. You know, the brand, the manufacturer date, the expiry date, all of these things are things that should be on the product, and these things may be omitted. And it is a type of illicit trade. So you may be wondering if this illicit trade is such a broad crime and it continues to happen, what are some of the enablers that make this you know, contributes to it continuously happening? And there are various enablers. I have highlighted some here. So we have disparity in taxes, and what this really means is that in Trinidad and Tobago, let's say the tax to import a particular product is high. Maybe in Guyana or Jamaica, the tax to import it may be lower. So perpetrators of illicit trade, for example, may go to said country, purchase the items where the taxes are lower, and then smuggle it into Trinidad and Tobago to evade higher taxes so that they could get, you know, more market share and the profitability would be higher. So they, as I said, they purchase it in said country where the taxes are low, and then they smuggle it into Trinidad and Tobago, right? So this is one type of illicit trade. Alternatively, as I said, you could just do the opposite, where taxes are lower in a particular country, so you purchase the items there and then smuggle it. So it's vice versa. We also have poor border control and security, which is typically a common problem, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but, you know, sometimes globally, where due to poor border control and security, illicit trade continues to perpetuate. So, for example, we may not necessarily have the adequate resources, or the resources may be a bit limited, where, you know, they have to, law enforcement or regulatory agencies may have to prioritize. So they may not be able to properly secure the borders, whether it be legal or illegal ports of entry, to try to reduce illicit trade. So this is more a lack of resources issue, in which, you know, in which illicit traders, you know, kind of build on or use this to their advantage, because they know the resources in Trinidad and Tobago could, or in other jurisdictions can be a bit limited. We also have another enabler, which is the link to organized crime, or, you know, crime in terms of persons within various criminal networks. So we have, you know, various crimes, more organized crimes, such as human trafficking, smuggling, the smuggling of guns and ammunition, and these types of items, where illicit traders may use these types of crimes to evade evade law enforcement, and also launder, you know, proceeds from other crimes that they may be committing. Also, in terms of the link to organized crime, sometimes illicit traders could be importing or trying to smuggle illegal items in the midst of, or branded as let's say they are trying to bring in alcohol products, but they are bringing alcohol products, but the container may also be filled with other illegal items entering the country. We also have the lack of enforcement, and this again is linked to, you know, limited resources, where more priority may be put on more serious crimes, or what could be considered or deemed more serious crimes, such as, you know, robberies and murders and these kind of items, where priorities were being put there as opposed to, you know, putting resources towards fighting illicit trade. We also have another enabler being the high profits and fast turnover. So illicit trade, I think I mentioned it earlier, but illicit trade is a very high profit industry where because you are evading taxes and these things, you could sell products at a cheaper price, and then you could dominate the markets and make a lot of profit. So this is a very, very attractive sector for persons, which is something that enables the crime to continue to occur. And we have the last two enablers, which are inadequate or low penalties, as well as weak governance and regulatory structures. So in terms of inadequate or low penalties, this means, what this is saying is that sometimes the consequence of illicit trade far outweighs the profitability or the returns for an illicit trader. And in Trinidad and Tobago, for various of the industries, we have seen that the penalties or the consequences associated with the crime don't necessarily discourage persons that engage in it, because the penalties are quite low. So if the fine, let's say, is $100, the profits that illicit traders are making could be $500. So the benefit far outweighs the risk that they are taking. And we also have gaps in governance and regulatory structures, such as, again, tying back into, you know, limited resources. We also have things like the free trade zone, where illicit trade tends to occur in some instances, you know, so moving away from like FTZs and moving in the direction of special economic zones, where law enforcement and regulatory agencies have more control. That would be better in trying to eradicate illicit trade. So why does illicit trade persist? So illicit trade persists because it's high profit, so it makes it attractive to perpetrators. The link to organized crime, as I said, money laundering, terrorist financing, we have human trafficking, and the trafficking of guns and ammunition, where, you know, they could be engaged in illicit trade as a guise to commit these other types of serious crimes. And I know most recently, some of you would have been seeing a lot of human trafficking cases, you know, in the public domain, on the news and whatnot. So it is occurring. We also have that the penalties are low and punitive, as I gave the example earlier. The benefits outweigh the risk or the consequences attached to it. And we also have, as I said, low risk, high rewards. So persons may engage in illicit trade rather than trafficking guns and ammunition or committing other types of crimes. So now we'll get into how illicit trade affects not only the economy, but you as a consumer, because illicit trade is broad, but it trickles down to the common man, right? So illicit trade, first and foremost, one of the effects is tax evasion. And if tax evasion, or taxes, I should say, is how the government really and truly makes their money to provide the infrastructure and the resources available to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, we have a lot of, you know, free opportunities, free education, free healthcare. You know, we have public transportation and all of these things in Trinidad and Tobago. But to provide these things for a citizen, the government needs resources, and they get their resources essentially from taxes. So if an illicit trader is evading taxes, this essentially would take away from government revenue. So that is one of the main economic effects of illicit trade. So the loss of government revenue. And just to show how it trickles down to the common man, if the government does not have enough revenue, then they will not be able to provide some of the resources and the infrastructure available to us as consumers, right? And this is one of the largest effects, because some of us depend on the free education, some of us depend on, free healthcare. You're able to go to a health center and see a doctor and get, free medication and all of these things. But if the government does not have the funds to do so, then, we will not be able to benefit from the niceties available to us in Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm just showing you how illicit trade, or if illicit trade continues to perpetuate, how it could affect you in the long run, right? So the primary area is one, tax evasion. We also have the erosion of legitimate businesses. So illicit trade tends to reduce, because they are able to sell their products cheaper and dominate the market. Illicit trade helps them, by doing this, they get to make higher profits. And if they are making higher profits and dominating the market, then this will be taking away from legitimate businesses or compliant businesses that are following the labeling standards. They are paying their taxes, they are paying their duties, they are contributing to economic growth and development. So it erodes, I should say, or diminishes the profitability and the market share of legitimate businesses. It also diminishes their reputational value. So if the market is flooded with a particular brand, a counterfeit of a particular brand, then consumers can start to lose confidence in a particular brand. So if I am selling Ilanka sneakers and then someone they imitate Ilanka sneakers, and all the work that I may have put in to build my brand and as a quality brand may start to diminish because now someone is imitating my product. So it does diminish reputational value, where consumers can start losing confidence in what you are selling or offering them. We also have that, it could therefore, because of these things, it could then, because of how these things affects a business, it could then trickle down into, decreases in production levels, a company's ability to grow their business, manufacture more, distribute more. It could also have an effect on the amount of foreign exchange. It could lessen on exports because they are losing market share due to illicit traders basically flooding the market, right? And of course, it could affect you as a consumer, because if a business is not making profits, then it reduces their ability to create jobs and create employment and opportunities for the citizens of a country. We also have the link to organized crime, and organized crime, as I said, it is linked to money laundering, terrorist financing, types of financial crimes, and the trafficking of guns and ammunition. Illicit trade has a link to that. Usually, some of the perpetrators that engage in illicit trade are also engaged in these types of crimes. It may not always be the case, but this can also be the case. And we also have that illicit trade could affect you as the consumer. Besides in the aforementioned ways, it could also affect you in you are now consuming a product that may not be good for your health. It may not be good for your safety or your well-being, because you are either ingesting or utilizing a product that is unregulated, substandard, maybe of low quality, and this is not something that you necessarily want. So these are some of the major effects of how illicit trade affects you and the country at large. So the most important question now is, how can you, the consumer, identify illicit trade, or that you may be in possession of an illicit item, right? So we have 4 main or primary themes that is applicable essentially across the board of products. The whole scope of products, I should say, where you'll be able to say, oh, this might be an illicit item, right? So there are 4 main commonalities, where we have, firstly, low pricing is somewhat a kind of giveaway of how you could identify an illicit item. So in terms of the pricing, usually illicit items are cheaper than what is industry norm, or what is considered normal industry or the standard price of an item, right? And usually illicit items are sometimes sold on deals. So you know how they say, if it's too good to be true, maybe it is. So if you're getting an item for an unusually low cost, that may raise some suspicion, and it should raise some suspicion, because you could be, purchasing or utilizing or consuming an illicit product. right? So as I said, it's usually cheaper than legitimate products on the market. It is usually cheaper, or it's usually cheaper than what you may be accustomed to. So this is one of the first giveaways of how you could identify that you're in possession of an illicit product. We also have incorrect labeling and packaging is another way that you could identify that you are in possession of an illicit product. And what this means is that it's not conforming to the local labeling standards. So some giveaways could be that it's missing information, or it has incorrect information on the product. It could mean that you're not seeing the expiry date on the label, which is something that should be on the labels of products, so that you will know when it's safe, up until what date it would be safe to consume. We also have the product. Another giveaway is that the product may be in a different language, right? The language that is considered the norm in Trinidad and Tobago, of course, is English. So if you're seeing a product in another language in which you may not even be able to read because you don't speak that particular language or understand that particular language, if it's in another language, then that should raise questions in your mind. And I know I highlighted this earlier, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this product is not a good product, or this product was not manufactured by the brand owner. But it just could mean that the product was not for sale in Trinidad and Tobago, which then would mean that it probably was smuggled into the country, right? So this is one of the main giveaways that could tell you that you are in possession or consuming an illicit item, right? Or be in possession of an illicit product, right? And also we have that the manufacturer codes are not visible on the product. So usually sometimes if a product is being smuggled, they usually, perpetrators usually scratch the lot or manufacturer codes off of the item, because they do so because that product may not, again, be for sale in Trinidad and Tobago. It may be for the United States, or it may be for another country. It could be it's probably meant to be sold in China, but it's being sold here, and the lot codes usually correspond to the country that it's being distributed in. So if they scratch this off the product, it could mean that it is a smuggled item, right? So these are some common things on the packaging or label of a product that you could pay attention to. We also have a very, very typical factor that you could pay attention to, which would be that the product is either poor or low quality, I should say. So the packaging may not be similar to what the product usually uses. The packaging may be shoddy. The packaging may be low quality. It may be flimsy, where you could kind of tell, oh, this product was not well made, right? Or we could say the product was not made with love. So this is how you could identify that you are in possession of an illicit product. Also, you could pay attention to if like seals are missing, you know, the rim around the corkscrew of the item may be missing. All of these things could tell you that this product was not made with high quality to then be put on the domestic market. And last but not least, we have the unauthorized retailers or suppliers distributing or selling the items, right? So in Trinidad and Tobago, there may be certain retail outlets that a manufacturer, distributor, or a brand owner authorized to sell their items. And if you see persons or businesses that are not authorized in selling or distributing a particular item, it could mean that, you know, they are engaging in illicit trade, right? Because sometimes, as I said, you know, a particular brand owner or a particular distributor has the rights to distribute or sell a particular product in a particular market, right? For example, sometimes international brands usually have on their website who are the authorized retailers or distributors in different jurisdictions. So sometimes you could even go and check on who is the authorized retailer or distributor in Trinidad and Tobago to sell Elanka shoes, right? And it may be available on their website where you'll be able to see that. Also, you may be seeing sometimes persons on the side of the street, vendors selling particular products which they may not have the authority to do so. So if you're seeing items being sold at establishments that you may be aware of, they don't have the rights to do so, then this can be, well, this is also considered, it could be an illicit item being sold there, or they are a retailer that don't have the rights to do so. So these are the 4 main areas that you could consider or look at in identifying illicit trade, or identifying that you may be in possession of an illicit item. And sometimes, guys, it could happen very much innocently. You could probably realize that you're in possession of an illicit item after, or you may not even be able to know that you're in possession of an illicit item. But, with sessions such as these, you would be able, it would help you in how you could identify illicit products. So how could consumers help combat illicit trade? Consumers, first and foremost, can help in making informed decisions and purchases. So the first thing, what you're doing here today, you are viewing, you are tuning into the Consumer Affairs Division's Facebook page on their talks on how, bringing forth sessions such as these to educate yourself on how to identify illicit trade, I would say, is the first step. So you guys who are here today are doing the right thing, and in order to make sure you have the adequate knowledge and insights on how you can identify illicit trade. So this could then help you on making informed decisions and knowing the effects of illicit trade on the economy as well as yourself, and thinking the benefits of not purchasing an illicit item far outweighs the cheaper cost of the item. So making informed purchases is the first way that a consumer can help in eradicating and diminishing illicit trade in Trinidad and Tobago. Because if you don't purchase the illicit items, then illicit perpetrators cannot flourish and continue to engage in the act and engage in this type of crime. Right? So again, educating yourself on how to identify products. Probably, if you're accustomed consuming a particular product, pay attention to the labeling, pay attention to the quality of the product and these kind of things, the price of the product. So you'll know if you see the products being sold at a way cheaper price, or you're accustomed seeing the seal a particular color, and then you see the brand, but a different color seal that is not accustomed to what you are aware of, then you may know that this is an illicit item. This is not how Ilanka shoes is supposed to look, right? We also have where you could report illicit trade to relevant law enforcement and regulatory agencies. So there are various agencies in Trinidad and Tobago that oversee, or the points of contact for particular items. I have listed some here. Some of the regulatory agencies, who oversee not only illicit trade, but oversee the laws and regulations and standards associated with particular products. Of course, the Customs and Excise Division and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is also very, very much two very important entities in combating illicit trade, most importantly, right? And we also have the option for you, the consumers, you could report illicit trade. You could report illicit trade if you see retailers selling products that they're not supposed to, or if you are aware of a brand that's not supposed to be sold here, you could report illicit trade to outlets such as Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers does provide a platform for you to make reports anonymously. If you have, some reservation in making the report, you could do so anonymously. To 800 tips, where you also have the opportunity to gain a reward for reporting the crime. So we do mainly encourage persons that you could report the crime to outlets such as Crime Stoppers on if you see illicit trade or think an item is illicit, and have the opportunity to get a reward, and could also be educated and guided accordingly. So these are the 3 ways that we believe that consumers can help in combating illicit trade. And we would like consumers to also join the fight. Sometimes the brand owners, BSOs, the government is, engaging in a number of activities in trying to reduce illicit trade. But you as a consumer, you as the common man on the street could also help in this fight and have an impact. So we encourage you to, educate yourself on what illicit trade is, how to identify it, and, be aware of the avenues available to you in combating illicit trade. We also have, besides you, the consumers, we also have, as I said, a number of private and public sector agencies that are engaging in a number of awareness campaigns and activities on educating the public on the topic of illicit trade. So here I have outlined what us at the TTMA do in terms of illicit trade, as well as what the government is currently doing. So us at the TTMA have formed an illicit trade desk since 2018 because we understood the impact of illicit trade on legitimate manufacturers and distributors, as well as on consumers at large, right? So in 2018, we took the initiative to form an illicit trade desk. And this desk, it has a number of private sector agencies and entities that have come together on, creating content and putting content out there on the impacts, effects of illicit trade, in a number of ways. And I will get into some of the activities that us at the TTMA have done. And we have also the government that has engaged in forming an anti-illicit trade task force. And this task force was formed in May of 2021, where the overseen by the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of National Security, where they have brought together a number of agencies, including the TTMA and other business support organizations, as well as the regulatory agencies under one umbrella to help fight illicit trade, or help combat illicit trade, I should say. So the government as well as private sector are working together. We are undertaking a number of activities, which I will go into some of the specifics and help in reducing illicit trade. And we ask that you, the consumers, also be on board to make the voice stronger, to make the fight against illicit trade more solid. So at the TTMA, I've outlined some of the things that we have done over the years, commencing in 2018, where we have had over 210 media exposures on different areas of illicit trade. So we have done articles on illicit trade in alcohol, tobacco, firearms. So we spoke about wildlife, music piracy, free trade zones. We spoke about cybercrime, human trafficking, money laundering, and all of these items, or all of these topics, I should say. We have been very much broad and holistic in the content that we are putting out there to paint a very clear picture of how intricate illicit trade is and how broad illicit trade is, and its impact on all of these sectors as well as you. We also have done a number of webinars. So we've collaborated with local, regional, and international agencies in putting forward webinars and sessions to educate the public on illicit trade. So we've worked with, the TTPS, Customs, the British High Commission. We've worked with Crime Stoppers Caribbean in doing a webinar. We've also worked with UNODC. We have collaborated with the Living Water community on doing a session on human trafficking, the International Trademark Association. We've also worked with the Ministry of Trade and Industry on a number of webinars on the topic of illicit trade. The illicit trade that's at the TTMA has also provided in the past training to 150 police officers and customs officers. I believe it was 120 police officers and 30. So we just, joined it together, where 30 customs officers on how they could identify illicit trade in particular sectors. Right, so that's just to make sure that they're on top of things. They know how to identify illicit trade, because in some instances, identifying illicit trade may be an awareness issue, or the lack of technical knowledge in identifying it and knowing what it is or what to look for. So we have provided training to these two entities on various areas of illicit trade. My executive team has also participated in interviews which was aired during news segments on illicit trade. TTMA is also a member of the Anti-Illicit Trade Task Force. We also contribute to the working groups, the various working groups, which I'll get to. And we've also recently signed a MOU with TRACEIT, which is an international organization that undertakes initiatives on combating illicit trade globally. And, you know, a number of position papers on the topic of illicit trade. So our public awareness and our reach or initiatives are very wide, very, very broad. We try to cover all bases of illicit trade and to paint, again, a holistic picture of the topic. And I could mention at this time, you could visit our website at ttma.com. You'll see the illicit trade tab there where you could see some of the articles that we have put out in the public domain in the past. In terms of the government now, we'll go to some of the initiatives that the Anti-Illicit Trade Task Force has done. I just touched on a couple in collaboration with the various working groups. So the AITTF, again, as I would say, it was established in 2017, not 2017, sorry, last year, 2021. And since then, I would say that the AITTF has done a lot of work. They successfully formed the 5 working groups. The main areas are, the main product areas, I should say, are the tobacco, alcohol, cleaning agents, and pharmaceuticals. Those are the 4 primary areas that the AITTF are focusing on, but they have also established a 5th working group on legislation, which will look at what the various legal pieces or the regulations that governs these product areas on how they can make certain tweaks or where loopholes, etc., may exist in these legislations in, you know, strengthening the regulatory and legal framework on combating illicit trade. As I said, it's 4 product areas. We know illicit trade is broad. I did highlight many more of the areas, but for now, the AITTF is focusing on these 4 product areas. I'm sure it will broaden in the future, but in 4 main areas where the prevalence of illicit trade, at least in Trinidad and Tobago, is higher, would be tobacco, alcohol, cleaning agents, and pharmaceuticals. So consumer products, essentially. And they have engaged in a number of public awareness campaigns. If you pay attention to their social media pages, you would see that they have put out a lot of content on how you, the consumer, could identify illicit trade in these 4 areas. And, you know, they have also established their website where you could find a lot of information on illicit trade. There are plans for more public awareness campaigns. So coming soon, you'll see a lot of radio ads, you know, interviews, webinars, all of these things will be coming together and being published in the public domain for you to consume, for you to better get a holistic understanding of what illicit trade is and the impact it has on you as the consumer. Right, so these are the 2 areas, private and public sector, and what we are doing in helping combat illicit trade in Trinidad and Tobago. And through initiatives such as these, we are asking for you, the consumer, to also be on board, work with these agencies, work with the government, work with private sector, work for yourself to ensure that you are protected against illicit trade. So that will bring me to the end of my presentation. I hope it was insightful. I now welcome Ms. Pollard, who will direct some of the questions.
Okay, this was very, very informative. It was a lot. I know that we have questions from our email coming in. So Ms. Manrique, you could stay with us. Let me just pose those questions to you. So we have a question from Asha in Macoya, and she wants to know where we can report these types of illegal goods if they are spotted.
Thank you, Asha, for that question. If you would like to make reports, if you see illicit products on the shelves at grocery stores, at retailers, or at outlets, I welcome you to reach out to Crime Stoppers at 800-TIPS. This is an avenue for you to make the report. You'll also be able to get an incentive for making the report, and you're also doing this anonymously, you know, because it's important to protect yourself. So you could reach out to Crime Stoppers, as I said, to make such reports when you spot illicit items on the market.
Okay, Asha, I hope that you got that information. So you can talk with Crime Stoppers and we will get that information to you about the number just coming down to the end. Stay with us, Ms. Manrique. We have Timothy emailing from Point Comana, and he wants to know if the Anti-Illicit Trade Task Force deals with fake pharmaceuticals as well.
Okay, good morning, Timothy. So thank you for that question. Yes, the AITTF does look at pharmaceutical items. The four main areas that the AITTF looks at would be pharmaceuticals, alcohol, tobacco, and cleaning agents. As I said, illicit trade is very broad, but for now, these are the four primary areas. So illicit trade in pharmaceutical items is being looked at, recommendations are being developed, and yeah, the ITTF is very much aware and inclined with illicit trade in pharmaceuticals.
All right, so Timothy, I hope that this helped clear up any misconceptions you may have had, so you are clear about what the AITTF task force is about. All right, so we have one more, we could take one more question, and we have one more from Kendall in Santa Cruz, and he wants to know where he can get more information. Now, I know, Ms. Manrique, that you did mention something about your public education campaigns, so I think it's more in that realm that he's speaking to. So if you could give him information, please.
Sure, he can visit our website at the TTMA, so www.ttma.com, and just go to the illicit trade desk tab, where he'll be able to view majority of the articles that we have done in the past, it's published by various media outlets. So he will be able to go on our website and read some of the content that we have put out there into the public domain.
Excellent. So Kendall from Santa Cruz, check the TTMA's website. You would be able to get more information if you are interested in getting a public education campaign conducted for yourself. So we want to thank Ms. Manrique for all the information. It has been a lot. I myself, I've been enlightened. Some of the things I really didn't know, some of the things I was not aware of. And I'm enlightened, I've been educated, and I thank you for taking the time to educate the public, the members of the public, and even ourselves as consumers about how to spot illicit goods, what goods are being traded, and where we can get information. So now, in the interest of time, I think we would move straight into getting information. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Hold 1 second, let me just get it up and share it with you. Share my screen so that you can have the information about where you can get in contact with us. So as she was saying, the Anti-Illicit Task Force is on our Ministry of Trade's website. All right, so you see tradeind.gov.tt/AITTF, where you can get more information about the Anti-Illicit Task Force. We also have the 800 tips line. So if you suspect that someone is engaging in the illicit trade, be it smuggling, counterfeiting, and selling illegal tobacco, fake medicine, illicit alcohol, whatever it is, you can call the 800 tips number, 800-8477, or you can send the tip online to www.crimestopperstt.com. That's crimestopperstt.com. All right, so I hope everybody has seen this. Please feel free to screenshot it, and you can also contact the Consumer Affairs Division. 800-4277 is our number. You can also contact us, consumeraffairs@gov.tt is our email. Consumeraffairs@gov.tt is our email. So at this time, we want to take the opportunity to thank Ms. Manrique again and the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association for taking the time to educate us on the Anti-Illicit Task Force and the work of the Anti-Illicit Task Force in Trinidad and Tobago, which has since been established in, I think, 2021, and work has been done since 2018. So thank you, Ms. Manrique. And if it is that you need more information, you can also check Consumer Affairs' Facebook page for more information and contact us there, and also contact us on our hotline 800-4277 and send us a message via our email consumeraffairs@gov.tt. So until next time, I have been your host and moderator, Mrs. Eva Ballard Noel. And so have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and take care.
Okay, bye.
Take care.